Hip hop, throughout its history, has always been known as a young man's genre, with artists in their teens and early 20s always at the forefront and setting the tone for the rest of hip hop. But the 2020s have seen a weird shift that I don't think we've ever seen before. Older artists are at the top of the rap game, with no real successors with similar star power to a Drake, Kendrick, or J. Cole anywhere in sight. Now, don't get me wrong, we have a couple young artists experiencing a lot of commercial success, but nothing like we saw in the 2010s, and it could potentially have a negative effect on the future landscape of hip hop. Why are rappers today not experiencing the success of 20 consisting of Drake, J. Cole, and Kendrick Lamar? We'll throw Future in there because we know how he gets about being left out of the big three. Have been on top of the rap game for about 15 years. They entered the rap game in their early 20s, and now in their late 30s, they're still dominating the charts. Side note, I don't know how these guys are dodging the Unk allegations at almost 40 when I'm 26 and y'all keep calling me Unk in the comments on a daily basis, but whatever, we'll brush that off for now. We'll get back to that. And while I think it's great to see artists have such longevity, it causes a ripple effect for newer rappers. Fans are constantly looking for the next big three that they set with such high expectations just to be let down every time. And the truth is, when Drake, J. Cole, and Kendrick were coming up, there was no denying their star power, impact, and just great music in general. And as of today, we rarely see artists have all those traits. And when we do, they end up going to more of a pop route. For example, like a Post Malone or a Jack Harlow. And at one point, fans were looking at Corday, Jack Harlow, Roddy Rich, Polo G, Baby Keem, and a few others as potential next big three successors or the next big three. And not to knock any of these artists, they all make solid music, but just none of them live up to the standards set by those stars in the 2010s. Fans just have such a nostalgic view of the big three and their previous work that fans are always checking out for them, even if something that they drop isn't up to their prime selves. It also just feels like nobody's really competing anymore. It feels like the hip hop landscape just isn't as competitive as it once was. With artists like Corday saying that he doesn't give an F about first week sales and he doesn't care, he's not bothered by whether he sells a lot first week or if he doesn't sell much first week. And I think that takes out a lot of the competitiveness in rap. Granted, first week sales aren't everything, and in recent years, first week sales have been sort of hyper focused on. They definitely weren't as important in the past, but you got to care a little bit. There's got to be a little bit of that competitiveness. At the end of the day, rap is sort of seen like a sport where there's always going to be people competing to be the top in the game. And if you're just not competing, how could you expect to be consistently a big respected rapper in the game? And I think that this mentality is a lot more common nowadays, especially being in such a more saturated market with a lot more artists not really caring about first week, just as long as they have that audience that can get them signed or can get them essentially to a point where this is a career. And I feel like a lot more artists are fine with just sort of being run of the mill and not really competing for anything. But do you guys remember Kanye versus 50 Cent, their first week? Little competition. We'll never see something like that again with this mentality. We saw Travis Scott and Sabrina Carpenter, but come on, that's 10-year-old mixtape versus a pop act. I don't know, bro. I'm trying to see Polo G and actually I don't even know. I guess I'm trying to see a prime Drake versus prime Kanye again. Not again because we never saw that, but I'm trying to see two artists that have that level of attention of them in their prime compete against each other, drop an album the same first week. I think that would be something ideal. Granted, something like that is rare, but I just mean the competition in general just isn't there right now. And that leads me to my next point. I think that music nowadays has gotten to a lot of fast food music. I've heard this term a lot on Twitter, fast food music, and it makes a lot of sense. With social media having such a profound takeover and just everybody, you have to be on social media if you want to be any type of public figure. So not only are artists just rappers and performers and entertainers, they're also influencers now. And fans are used to such a heavy output because it feels like as an artist or just as at any profession industry where you're in the public eye, it feels like you have to constantly be making content. And a lot of the artists that are connecting with their fans a lot are making content. Granted, these older guys that are still on top aren't really doing as much. I guess Drake's posting a lot on Instagram and stuff like that. But we're never going to really see Kendrick make a TikTok. We're never going to see J. Cole make a TikTok. We've seen J. Cole interview Lil Pump, but I think that's as far as that goes. But if you're trying to establish yourself as a big artist, you have to create content. You have to be online and you have to interact with your fans a lot. There's really no way around it. unless you're like a Playboy Cardi or even a Baby Keem. But Baby Keem is insane for taking 3 years off after dropping his debut album. That is a bold move, but I guess it'll work out. He's related to Kendrick, so it'll work out for him. But granted, you have to be making a lot of content. You have to be following trends, and that's what really sucks for an artist that's trying to establish himself now, is that music trends and sounds change so quickly. Just in recent years, we've seen Cardi's baby voice take over, and a lot of people were trying to imitate that. And then he went to the deep voice, and a lot of people were trying to imitate that. And it just seems like what's trending in those 60K first week is insane. I think if Uzi had taken that rollout a little more seriously and dropped an actual project with substance, he would have done 100K easily. But that's a video for another day. We're not going to get too much deep into that or too much off track. And I also think with this fast food music, a lot of artists are trying to appeal to a younger audience. And we've seen Drake do this a lot. The Tootsie Slide and other songs. If the biggest artist in the game is doing it, obviously it's going to trickle down. And a lot of people are just really competing to make the catchiest song. And it doesn't really feel, granted, there are exceptions in every case. It doesn't feel like it did 10 years ago. And those classic early 2010 rap beats, you know what I'm talking about. You know what they sound like. You're just not going to see much of it anymore because people are trying to go for the catchiest record. We've seen it a lot with the heavy rise of hooks that are just repeating the same phrase or the same sentence or the same bar. And I feel like it's just dumbing down the music a lot, which helps with mass appeal, but at the same time, it doesn't really help with music sticking. And granted, there are going to be those hit songs that stick every year. It's just not, it feels like it's a lot less than it was in years prior. And that leads me on to my next reason is nostalgia. It feels, honestly, fans really don't want to let go of the biggest artists they grew up listening to. And Drake, Kendrick, Cole, Future, Eminem, all these artists that have been around 15, 20 years, they're still at the top because people don't want to let them go. They grew up listening to this artist, whether you're late teens, 19, 20, mid 20s, early 30s, mid 30s. You were young when these guys were coming up, if not super young, early high school, college, whatever. And now they're still on top. These artists have grown for the past 15 years and continue to drop music. And people don't want to let that go. You grow up with an artist, and that's something that you want to hold on to and you want to keep checking out for their music. And it's crazy because this next generation, the younger kids, the kids that are in high school now, in middle school now, they're still seeing these artists at the top. They're not still seeing, but they're experiencing in their core years Drake, Kendrick, Cole, Future, Eminem, shoot, Uzi, even, and those artists from 2016 are at the top still. And they're not really having their share of artists that they can grow up with that will be on top when those artists are 40 and they're 15 through 20 or 20 through 25. So with that, it just seems like this is setting up for no future stars and for a lot of our generation and the next generation to just be nostalgic on the current older artists that are still on top now rather than looking forward to the artists that are coming up. And I just feel like it's going to set up for a lot less star power, and sales all around for music have been down. I feel like if there's no successor to these guys, not necessarily a big three, but just a young rapper, early 20s that commands a lot of star power to take their spot, it's going to cause a big effect in rap. We're rap in a recession, honestly, and we're already seeing it with genres like country taking over. I feel like along with all this nostalgia, there's a lot of fans that have a lot of online discourse and they're so quick to call projects mid and brush them off, and you just look for a hit, and if they don't find it, projects mid, and not really take the time to really take in the album or listen to it a couple times. And that leads fans to view older artists in a more positive light because there was time to be able to listen to those artists without having any of that discourse 10 years ago, and you can really form your own opinion before you start seeing everybody calling it mid. Because realistically, bro, we're all social creatures. We are going to take the opinions of other people into consideration. So if you go into an album seeing a lot of negative discourse on Twitter, you're automatically going to go into it with the mentality of this is mid, even if it is the type of music that you enjoy. But that's just what I think. I could be completely wrong. Maybe there are a lot of young artists that are really on the rise and really going to command a lot of star power in the next few years. You have artists like Jack Harlow, that's always doing numbers. You have artists like Lil Baby, who took a little step back, but it seems like he's creeping back into his spot. So who knows? I could be wrong. What do you guys think? Do you guys think that there are any current young artists that are really going to lead the next generation forward, or do you think that it's really only these older artists shining right now? And do you think that this is bad for hip hop, or do you think that the future of hip hop is fine? Drop a comment down below. I'd love to start a discussion with you guys. Remember to like the video and subscribe. If you guys stuck around this far in the video, I really